my channel. Today I'm sharing with you some dollar store DIY ornaments, mostly Dollar Tree ornaments, Christmas ornament DIYs. If you have not seen over on my lifestyle channel, yesterday I shared my shopping haul and come shop with me. I took you guys to our Dollar Tree. I'm in Canada, so I thought you might be interested to see a little bit different what our Dollar Tree looks like if you're not from Canada. And I also took you to Dollarama, which is another dollar store that we have here. And they tend to have really nice greenery and home decor. I do find Dollar Tree to be a little bit better when it comes to DIY supplies, but Dollarama definitely has a little bit more higher end looking decor. They do have some DIY supplies that are pretty neat, but I find that Dollar Tree has better seasonal DIY supplies. So without me chatting for too much longer, I'm going to take you along, and I'm going to be making, I think there's 5 of them. They're very simple again, cost you no more than $1.50. So let's get started. For the very first project, I am using this wooden sled that I had picked up at Dollar Tree, and I want to give it some life by painting it and maybe doing some stenciling. So I'm going to paint it with a apple barrel paint, it's an acrylic paint in black as well as flag red. And the red is going to go on the top and the black will go on the sides and on the bottom. I love sled decor for Christmas. I even picked up a vintage sled last year for my front porch that I absolutely love. And that was actually the paint for this sled was inspired by that vintage sled. So I wanted to make it look a little bit vintage. I did find that the red was a little bit bright, but I did end up adding some black into it, so that made it look less bright. I am using a wider brush for the bottom. However, I did find that into the little crevices I needed to go with a thinner brush, and I actually use a lot of makeup brushes for things like this. I just find that they work really well. If you can get your hands on cheaper makeup brushes, they might be well worth buy, because they do work for a lot of small spaces, or if you need thinner lines, and especially the eyeliner makeup brush does a really good job in thin lines. So as you saw, I added some black and then I just wiped it off and blended it, and now I'm just adding a little bit more red paint over top of it and blending it all in. I did decide to add one more paint color to this, and that was going to be the white acrylic paint. I wanted it to give it a little bit of a snow effect, but before I did that, I did some more blending, and I'm just using a coffee filter to blend it all in. I'm not sure where I saw this being done. You could probably use a paper towel as well, I assume. And once everything was blended in, there was a little bit of red paint on the sides, a little bit of black paint on top, and that is exactly what the look that I was going for. I thought that this gave it that vintage look. So I also wasn't quite sure what I wanted to put on here, and then I ended up deciding just to go ahead with the snowflake. So before I actually dry brushed the white paint on, I did sponge the snowflakes on it, and I am just using a dollar store bristle brush and a apple barrel white paint, acrylic paint. And like I always say, when you're stenciling anything on, less paint is better. You can always build up on it, but if you go too heavy, you might get leakage. And I wanted to give it some effect, like the snowflakes uh, were kind of not fully on in certain areas. I hope that makes sense.
Da, 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 making our Christmas memories. I've been working so much lately, I can barely find the time to sleep. Yeah, I spend my time running around, keeping people pleased. But this is my favorite holiday. It's a chance to start over.
Once the snowflakes were on there, I felt like it still needed a little bit more, so I decided to add these little stars to it as well.
'Cause I missed you, so I'm letting go of everything but you. These are the good times with you. Baby, this year it's just.
And then whatever paint was left on that brush, I just dried it off a little bit on the rag and then just dry brushed it, the rest of it onto the sled.
Gonna be you and me, hang by the fire and chill. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, and I've been longing to hold you close. Forget about everyone else. Isn't this how
And to
it's
finish the sled off, I just gave it a light sanding, and this I think was what gave it that even more of that vintage look.
supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, oh, la 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 la. Oh, oh.
I just love the way this turned out, and I think this one will go on my rustic front tree.
Christmas memories. I've been wrapping presents.
Next one, I made two of these. I picked up these clear ornaments at Dollar Tree, and these napkins I had left over from last year's DIYs. They came from Walmart. Now I'm going to be making two of them. I will only share one because they're exactly the same, both of them. I just wanted to have two of them. So I cut one napkin out for this whole project. So very budget friendly and inexpensive. Obviously, if it's budget friendly, it should be inexpensive. And then once I cut it up, I just separate the layers of the napkin because you only want to have that one layer. And then I use a matte Mod Podge to to apply onto the ornament, and then that was my obviously my glue for the napkin. And I covered first the one side and then just gently placed it, and then I tried to make sure that the truck and the letters or the words were nicely on there, not wrinkled. The rest of it I was okay if it wrinkled. I just really wanted that truck not to wrinkle up. And I was showing you that it looks really cute without adding the back to it because you can see the truck through it, but I still decided that I wanted to do the same process on the back. And then once I was happy with how the placement was, I ended up just pinching the sides around, and then I trimmed it off all the extra, and you don't have to worry about covering the whole side because I will show you what I'll do, but I did end up just pressing everything down and smoothing it out. You don't want to press too hard because the napkin will rip. And then I went ahead and hot glued some nautical rope to go around it. I did see this DIY a few years back, a similar one on Pinterest, but I was never able to find these ornaments. I found the full circle ones like ball ornaments, but I've never um, found ones like these, and these worked much better. And then I finished it off with more layers of Mod Podge on top just to give it that more solid texture and make it more permanent so it doesn't come off. I just love the way these turned out.
Making our Christmas memories. I've been wrapping presents for you. I've been hanging marbles in the tree.
Well, I hope you are enjoying these DIYs so far, and if you are, make sure you hit that thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, I would love it if you consider subscribing, becoming part of my DIY YouTube community here by pressing the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell as well. That way you will get notified every time I post a video. So let's keep going. Now these were a package of, I think, 5 wooden snowflakes. I will be using 2, and I will save the other ones for a different DIY. So first thing that I'm going to do is add this rope, and the reason why I'm doing that is because it would be a lot harder to add it once it was done, because I will be adding some salt and glitter to it. And if you're trying to do this after, I think it would make a lot of that glitter and salt fall off. So once the ropes were on, I ended up putting some Mod Podge on the whole snowflake. You can also use tacky glue for this if you'd like. I would not recommend hot glue just because it would dry out by the time you end up sprinkling the whole thing. And when you're adding glitter, you want to add it on top of some tray so that way you contain your glitter in one spot instead of putting it just on a surface like on the table. Then it'll get all over the place. And I do this on both sides. And for the first one, I am using a white glitter, Spectra glitter, and mixed in with some Epsom salts. I had this left over from, was it last year or the year before, and I just had the leftovers in a Ziploc bag. And then the next one, I added a little bit of a red glitter to it as well. I didn't want it to do it fully in red. I wanted it to be a little bit mixed up. So I think this worked out really, really nice. Very easy, extremely inexpensive, and the end result is great. And I have a perfect tree for these as well.
And I've lit my house with Christmas lights, so you should come back home to me. And when we wake up in the morning, I'm gonna play those carols that you love. We'll be singing all the melodies until the sun.
Now, these ones came from Dollarama last year, and I had some left over, so I thought I used them up. So I ended up leaving them as they are. You could also paint them if you don't want them just in that wood color. And you want to remove the little rope off of them. I added some Mod Podge to 2 sides, and then I am going to glue that leftover trim from the napkin that I used earlier, and just that buffalo check side, and I'm gluing 2 opposite of each other, so that way when I hot glue the other part of the tree to the other tree, you will see both sides the right way. I hope that makes sense, but you can at least see what I'm doing if I can't explain it. So you didn't technically have to put Mod Podge on both of the trees, only on the one. And then I trim off, and then to trim it off, to smooth it out a little bit more, I am going to just take my little sanding block and just get into the little crevices and sand the paper off. I think this was the easiest instead of trying to cut it off. This was such another very simple DIY, and I just love the way it turned out. The only recommendation is blow on the hole. So if you end up putting some Mod Podge on there, you can get it out. For the last DIY, it totally turned out different than what I started off thinking it should turn out to. But I picked up this at Dollar Tree. They have all sorts of shapes. I already shared my Christmas tree shape and what I did with it. And now I'm just using the ornament shape, and I will be making it into an ornament. So I give it a solid coat of that same black acrylic paint I've used earlier. And then once I have the fully painted, I am just painting the one side. I take a rag and just wipe some of it off, and this does make some of that wood grain show through, which I just love. And you want to get into all the little crevices and wipe it all the way around.
Comes up, these are the good times with you. Baby, this
Now once that was done, I was going to use those wooden shapes but changed my mind. I am going to go ahead with the stencil again and just figuring out what I wanted on there, and I'm going to stencil it on with some white acrylic paint. I wanted this to kind of go along with a sign that I made in my last DIY that I shared on Tuesday. And I think I forgot to mention that these stencils did come from Dollar Tree. I picked them up last year or the year before. I have not seen them yet this year, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to be out, and maybe they'll have even better ones than these ones. I have used these quite a bit in the past year. And for the sponging for this, I'm just using a small piece of sponge. And again, less is more, and then I'm just adding some stars to it again. And to complete it, I'm taking that extra rope from the Christmas trees that I made just earlier, tying it up, and I'm going to hot glue it to the back so that way I can hang it up on a Christmas tree. So all of these DIYs were so easy to make. They all came under $1.50, and they can go with any style of a Christmas tree, because you can make it go with any style by choosing the paints that you put on them or the napkins you Mod Podge on.
it's just gonna be you and me, hang by the fire and chill. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, and I've been longing to hold you close. Forget about everyone else. Isn't this how it's supposed to be?
I hope you had enjoyed these DIYs, and if you did, like I said, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you're not, and if you are returning, I am so grateful to have you back here again, and hope to see you in my next video as well. Until next time, hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you all so much for watching.